Welcome back, friends. LostScarf here, and it's time for us to have basically a podcast with the Kyllax.
Howdy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Long-time fan, first-time caller.
Me and Kyllax go way back when it comes to the Smite days. And Kyllax has an interesting journey because of just things that get in the way in life. And for you, it is deployments.
Most of the time, yeah. They seem to get in the way. At least when I want them to.
And before we go into that, because I'm curious, just talk about how you got started when you started doing YouTubing.
I started doing YouTubing in, let's see, I had just gotten to Hohenfels, Germany. And I kind of got bit with the bug again because back in like late 90s, I was into like Ultima 7 and Link to the Past. Zelda, Link to the Past, Super Nintendo, all that stuff. And I had been out of gaming for so long. I didn't even have a PC system at all that could handle anything. And then ended up working with this guy, and he just kept talking and talking. And then it just got the bug back into me to start playing again. So I started playing DC Universe Online. And then from there, I went to Smite. And I really got into it, and he was the friend that got me back into the gaming, was into the Smite as well, and he got me hooked on Smite. And I was just playing around. It was still in the open beta days. I was like, you know what? There's some good guides out there and stuff for, like, you had like jungle and stuff like that. And my very first video was a funny video, but as I played more and more Smite, and as I was looking around more and more on YouTube, I was like, there's really nothing that speaks to me. I'm a very logical person, so I started to develop and write out a script I'm learning how to play Smite. What if I kind of capture what I'm doing to learn how to get better at Smite, and then kind of relay that to other people? And so I started a whole series on that. It was a Smite lesson plan, and it was laid out logically, at least for me, and kind of like steps and phases and so forth. So I learned the gods, and then I kind of learned the roles, more or less. The terminology and stuff was new to me because I'd never played a MOBA. And so they got me into that, and kind of my quirky sense of humor interjected itself every so often. So I would think of ideas, and they would encourage me basically to make videos, and so that's how I started making videos for YouTube. And then, yeah.
I remember the days back then. Like, I don't remember. Was it called the Smite Showcase back then, or was something else?
Before the Smite Showcase was the Lightning Round.
Yeah, it was Lightning Round.
Duke.
But it was, with Duke. But it was the one with the one that got you blown up. Like, you blew up a couple times, and one of them was the news thing.
Yeah, the Smite Inside Edition.
Yeah, there you go.
That was one of my bigger ones. I'm always trying to recapture that, but yeah. I always seem to do better when I have a topic, so the Smite Showcase really worked out for me, because they would give me a topic, and I would sort of think about it for a bit and come up with ideas that I found funny, and then just work off there. So when the first episode, the first topic came out, which was... I was trying to think what it was. Interviews?
I think it was, yeah.
I think it was like interviews or something like that. And so I had picked up on how to export all the audio files from Smite, so I could use the audio files for answers and so forth. And I was like, well, thinking about it, I think about Scylla, I think about Najah, and it was like, you have all these kids in this game, and I was just like, what would happen? I think it would be funny to me personally if I came up with like an Inside Edition, scoop on how Smite's using all this child labor and stuff. And then,
now I remember that part, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the part that got most people to laugh was the portion with what was that guy's name? I'm so bad with names. Anyway, I had borrowed some of the footage from the very first Smite Showcase where they had Dan. That was it.
Oh, yeah.
How was Dan? Where he's always just like, "Is that funny, Dan?"
Just like, this one.
I was like, "Oh, let me use that." and be like, well, I'll ask that video clip questions. I'll be like, oh, are you aware that you're using child labor? And he's just like,
I
yeah, I'm aware.
remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and trying to use that clip, I was just like, well, I could have him stay there and be just like completely still. And then when I ask him the question, go like that, but it just wouldn't look natural. So what I ended up doing was taking kind of probably about like 10 frames maybe worth, 10 to 20 frames worth of him just kind of going like this.
Mhm.
And so in order to make it kind of like a, what do they call it, an idle motion in video games and so forth, where your character is
Oh
just
yeah.
standing, it's just standing around. So all it is just, yeah, it's
I
wobbling
like that.
back and forth. And so I thought about it more and more. And, so I just took the frames and then I flipped them and I made them reverse.
Yeah.
And I kept repeating the pattern. So he would go like this. So it would look like he's at least doing something instead of just like standing there staring into your soul and do their best. And that's what got most people. So the first time I ran it through, I was just laughing my ass off just watching Dan just go like this. And then, like, are you aware that Smite is using child labor? Yeah. And then go back to it while I'm reading my next question, and he would just go on. So, and so that got their attention, and then after that, it was a real hit or miss. It's still real hit or
Yeah.
miss for me, but Smite Showcase at least gave me kind of a starting point to think about, because oftentimes my brain works in mysterious ways. I like to think, as evidenced by some of my videos out there. So
Yeah.
at least that gives me a perimeter to work around.
Smite Showcase was very hit or miss. Unless you were Artyom. They loved Artyom.
They
I remember that. They loved that guy. I'm like, this is insane.
That is why that's what the reason for one of my videos actually was the Smite Showcase movie. The topic was movie trailers, and so it was just like, well, I'll do a movie trailer on the Smite Showcase. So I'll make the Smite Showcase the movie, and then I'll make a trailer for the movie. But the trailer for the movie is basically introducing itself. So it was really weird. But in there, speaking of RTM, I was like, so did Shillaru, I would list off some of their common suspects for picking videos. I'd be like, oh, did Shillaru submit something? Or what about Spit?
Oh yeah.
Like, the RTM? It's like,
Yeah.
shit. And then I inserted a line in there as a silent little nod to that. I was like, well, was it edited in such a way as to make it seem like he took a bunch of illicit substances beforehand? I was just like,
geez,
oh yeah.
They had their favorites, and
They did.
they drew from that well very many times.
They did.
They did. They definitely did. The different topics was interesting. When they did that was an interesting challenge. I wanted to do them, but that took some time to do for those things.
Yeah, I remember one of them that you guys did. You did Fenrir. Was it like a song or something?
Oh, singing with Fenrir was amazing.
Yeah.
That was great. Oh, we made so many things, and then they just didn't get considered. Like, they didn't even get shown in a showcase. I'm like, well, maybe we're wasting our effort over here right now, and just moved on to other things because they loved Shillaru and RTM so much. I'm like, we see these guys on nearly every week, so I'm like, we should probably put our efforts somewhere else. It was fun editing, but it was a lot of work editing.
Right.
But you learn a lot when you do that. And I didn't even consider what you said. You reverse the frames for an idol. That's pretty clever. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. Some of those things I can. One of my latest best videos, I guess I should say, was the Smite Gods of Jerks, and I picked that up from Remedy's husband. Crap,
Soapbox?
Messy
Not
Fresh.
I'm thinking of Smith, not Remedies. Yeah,
no.
my bad.
Messy Fresh, and he kind of walked me through on how to use Autodesk 3D to export the models from Smite. So you could export the models, and you could export you could export their animations, and you could basically put them on a green screen, put a green background behind them, And so that's what I ended up doing was well, I'd seen all those Street Fighter, was it like Ken's a jerk or Ryu's a jerk or something like that, or Ryu's
Uh,
an ass a hole or something like that. Videos where you'll see Ryu like trip somebody, and they'll fall flat face first into the pool or wherever. So I used that as a basis, and I was just like, well, I'm going to take some of the Smite models. I went looking for some fail videos, ended up green screening their animations, and then threw them in there to make it look like they were causing the accidents or the fails.
oh, that's interesting. Huh.
That's the one where you have a cameo, don't you remember? Hebo comes up to you.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, you
Oh.
gonna say you probably don't remember. It's been a
Oh,
while. That was probably
it
a year
has been
ago.
years. Oh man, it's been a long time. Yeah, I haven't even thought about the old Smite days, and I need like trying to remember the videos I made back then and everything. Well, me and Jinx made.
Hmm.
It's so long ago, and just even remembering the guides and yeah, I did a lot of work in Smite. Did a
Yeah.
bunch of things, but yeah, trying to remember all that, like it's basically memory lane. Just thinking about all that stuff, just what was done back then. All the things we did back then. Oh, jeez, and all. Oh God, the amount of time and effort in making videos back then, and just it was a time, and learned a lot from those times.
There was a time. I mean, as long as kind of my goal was if I thought it was funny, then I would work on it.
Yeah.
It would make me work harder on it. So if I, just watching my videos over and over again, watching the same 10 minutes of footage or the same 1-2 minutes of footage for hours and hours on end, as long as I kept thinking it was funny, didn't seem like that much work.
This is true.
That's my
This is
advice to
very true.
everybody out there.
Just do it, and like if whatever's fun.
Yeah, if it's fun for you or if you enjoy it. I enjoyed the logical aspect of it at the
Mm.
beginning when I was doing my Smite lesson plan, and then that kind of led me into the casting portion of it, where you and I met yet again
Yeah.
over at Smite Scrims, I think it was,
I think it was Smite Grims, yeah, and Verb was there,
and Verb was there, and
and
you
a
were
number of
there,
people.
and the Scarecrow was there.
Oh jeez. And then something with Falcon happened, and that's how we met Remedies, I think. And Hugo? I think we got Hugo there.
We met Remedies and Hugo. I had encountered once before on YouTube. I had watched one of his playthroughs, and I actually commented on one of his
Hmm.
videos, and then we ran into each other again. Yeah, through Falcon later
Yeah.
on.
And this is such a memory lane. All the old viewers who are still been around after all these years will understand everything we're saying. Everyone who has not,
Everybody
it's
else,
I should explain a bunch of things. Like, okay. So Smite Days, there's a lot of content creators out there, and just people trying to do different things. We had the casting group, which was Smite Scrims, and so we would actually have teams that were trying to be kind of like in the league and everything, going against each other, and people would be casters for that. And we met Verbalocity there, who's been on some of the podcasts, and we met Hugo, who's been on Scarf Friend Adventures, and some of these other people like Falcon and other names we're just throwing out there. And Shillaru, who works for High Res now, I think, right? Shillaru is with High Res, and I don't know anything about RTM beyond how crazy his videos were. And yes, Spiff showed
he's
up quite
still
a
out.
bit.
I still see some of his artwork, and I follow
Okay,
him. I follow him on Twitter. He's not really incredibly, what I would call incredibly active, but
okay.
I, I digress.
Yeah, so this is all just stuff from a couple years back, and it's there's a bunch of funny stuff, and just what is it? I think the one people might know Remedies from the most is when she did was the top 10 hottest guys in Smite, hottest gods. She did like they sounded the hottest to
Yeah,
her, or they were just the hottest ones. I remember that was the one that she got showcased
voice
on.
specs, I think.
I don't know. I don't remember if it was voice packs or just the gods themselves. Because she really liked Uller. I remember that part. But and yeah, that was just all the Smite days and all the names from back then and everything. And just I don't know who's big now because it's just been so long. But yeah, Smite was a thing. As a lot of us know, Smite was a thing. But digressing from Smite and going on to another topic, I'm really the biggest fascination I have is because you've been on deployment a few times during your YouTube time, and just asking, basically, does that just what happens to that while you're out?
Uh, you're never really sure. Every time you go out is different. This last time I was actually I would say more connected than I have been in my previous ones. I had a civilian internet, basically a puck that basically gave me 3G, uh,
Oh,
and then rebroadcast it out over Wi-Fi, so it would connect to this puck by Wi-Fi, and that would connect to a cell phone signal. It wasn't anything. It wasn't good enough to game with, especially given where I was at. But at least kept me connected, and contacted with people on Twitter, and um, I could watch videos. I really couldn't upload any videos, but I could watch videos. So other than that, it's really hard. I'm being on deployment and not being able to produce any content for 9 months. I'm sure it hurt me in a way. It's a little frustrating for the most part. I wouldn't say I'm the most active content producer. I seem to have hit like a comedic dry spell in coming up with video ideas, but needless to say, it's frustrating, and it kind of gets to you, and you kind of think and kind of work around it, and my solution is kind of try to be a little bit more active on Twitter, I guess, and the things that I could do, I would try to do. I started picking up drawing, and I picked up a graphics tablet now, so I'm trying to work on my doodles, trying to make them actually work and whatnot. You saw one of them. I get that pixelated logo of yours that I
oh
made.
yeah.
That one I did with a mouse, though. That's just because I had some free time on my hands. Right now, I'm working on drawing a few comics, web comics here and there. I haven't
Oh,
actually started publishing anything. I kind of want to get together. They say like get together months worth of content before you come out and so forth. But I ran one past Jinx. She said it was pretty funny.
well, that's good. It's oh, I gotta talk about this. So a funny thing, it's like webcomics are a big thing for me and Jinx. When we first met, we read a lot of like she introduced me to webcomics, and then so I read a bunch, and we both have read a bunch of webcomics. So yeah, she's the right person to talk to. She really likes webcomics,
Yeah.
and there's a group called they're not together anymore. They were called Half Pixel, and they
Mhm.
wrote a book called How to Make Webcomics. Because no,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's like the book, like with Scott McCloud, how someone had to write the book about just drawing. Like they're the guys who wrote. Well, no one's written a book about how to make webcomics, and they wrote that. And it's got a lot of good advice, not just for about webcomics, but also marketing.
Mhm.
There's also a lot of technical stuff in there. Like they even talk about just gutters and things like that for your
Mhm.
comics if you can do it that way. And so they're a good one to check out. But
Yeah, actually, I saw that on my search engine when I went through Google, and I said, "Hey, show me how to make web comics. What are some of the pitfalls that I should look out for?" And that's where I picked up the 30 days thing. And of course, the first advice is always generally the same. It's just like, well, don't put the cart before the horse, kind of thing, and focus on your art and focus on your comic first, and then worry about the marketing, worry about the Twitterverse, and your search engine optimization and all that other technical mumbo jumbo jargon.
yeah, having a product worth showing off and then going from there, I suppose is the way to put it.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
webcomic.
Yeah, well, I got to work on making my scribbles actually visible and actually discernible. So like, oh, that's a person. That's not a chicken.
Are you sure? Are you sure? It's not actually been a comic about chickens this whole time.
Could be. Sometimes that happens. You start with one idea, and the more you work it, you work it and work it, and try to massage some of the dialogue, or try to massage some of the scenes and so forth, and another idea springs forth from it. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to work an idea now for RTO for the webcomic, but I just can't seem to get my mind around it. But the idea has changed a few times already. So, I mean, just keep plugging away at an idea. If you think it has merit or trying to mine it for comedic gold, just keep plugging away. You'll figure out an angle on it.
Oh yeah, just you chip it away, and the more you look at it, the more you notice. It's an interesting thing about anything. Just look at it more, you notice the cracks. Like not the cracks like in battle, but like cracks of detail, I suppose is the right way to put it. Like you notice just the detail. That's the best word to put, I guess. Like the lines, like each line and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wording that weird. But I don't know. I really like webcomics, so it's cool to hear that you're making one. So I'll want to check that out in the future for sure.
Yeah, I'll shoot you over a rough draft drawing for a couple of. I farm out my rough, like I'll rough sketch something like super rough where you can barely tell. It's like probably a step and a half above stick figures, but it's not nearly anywhere that's ready. But it's more like, hey, let me rough sketch this idea so that I can ask somebody, be like, hey, is this funny? Is this not funny, or is it just funny to me? Because that often happens to me. It'll be like, I'll be like, oh man, this is so effing funny. And I'll be like, ask somebody else, and they'll just be like, I don't get it. I'm like, well, you gotta. And I'll be like, oh, if you have to explain the joke, it's not funny. And
It
that's
does depend.
half the problem.
It depends on the person if they get it. Like it's always a question of how niche your humor is, or how widespread it is, or even if it's on the pulse of whatever audience you're looking for, and stuff like that. Depending on which audience and stuff like that. There's because there are, of course, this has become a webcomic talk now. There's like the comics where there's not a lot of detail, but there's pretty good humor, which is like you could say like XKCD, like that guy's really popular with stick figures, but just having an interesting humor about the things they talk about. A lot of math in XKCD. Then you
Right.
have dinosaur comics, which for
Hmm.
literal years it's just the same four stills, and the guy just makes jokes with just that,
Really? Wow.
and that's all he's done, and it's kind of amazing. Or we have something like Chainsaw Suit, where the detail's gotten better over time, but at first it's not the most detailed stuff. Like it's pretty stick figure at first, but he's gotten better over the years at how it is. But it's just 3 panels, and
Hmm.
it's pretty interesting the mix of how the humor goes, and it's been pretty funny for many years with that comic. And it's just him with his natural humor, which you of course you build up over years and years and years of being funny. It just gets stronger.
Right.
And that's a pretty popular webcomic that's just not very much drawn to it. And so that's always a thing you can do, as well as if your writing is really strong, then you don't have to be amazing at the art at first. But
Yep.
then of course you can of course improve at your art, of course.
All right.
I don't know. I think I'm just saying like
Make
both
sure you're
writing and art are both things to work on.
right.
And if you're really strong at one, then it can hold you over until the other one comes along, I suppose.
No, that makes perfect sense. It kind of balances the other one out. Like if your writing's really strong and you're really funny, I mean, if your writing's really funny, you can get some leeway on the artistic side of it.
Yeah. At least that's always been my experiences. I've seen people they'll forgive not the best art if they really like the writing.
Yeah,
And they'll forgive crap writing if the art is beyond amazing. But if you can pull off both, holy crap.
true. It's going to be a while before I can pull off the art side of it, but the writing side, I would like to think I have a decent handle on.
Well, we constantly see that growth is just it's a matter of time and also effort, like time plus effort, for growth, and then for success you also have to add luck and opportunity in there. But you see,
Definitely.
like I think he tweeted today, Steve Sketches. I don't know if you follow Steve, but he showed
I do.
the difference between 15 years ago and today.
Yeah,
Did
I
you see
actually
that one?
did. I did see that. That was pretty sweet. It was like a fighter kind of guy.
Mhm.
That's pretty awesome.
I was like, damn, Steve, because
Yeah.
he was in Smite as well, and he drew so much fan art for Smite. I don't know what he's drawing these days, but I've watched him a few times, and it's just impressive how good he is.
It is. He's a really nice guy as well. If you, I've visited some of his streams, a few times, watched him do some work, and you can tell he'll interact with his chat. I mean, his chat even will submit him some of their drawings, and he'll be like, "Well, okay, I can see where you're improving. Just keep trying, keep going." He's very supportive. Uh, he doesn't think anybody's trying to take his job away from him. So I mean, that's great. Steve sketches. I love Steve. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy. I hope to be someday at that, even half that level of that he's at. But who
Oh, he
knows?
did show. He showed 15 years. Like, he was like, "Oh, here's the difference in 15 years." Like, everyone starts somewhere.
True. That is true. Start with stick figures, and people are always just like, "Oh, I can't draw, I can't draw." And I said that for the longest time. Of like, I can't draw, I can barely draw stick figures, blah 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 blah. And then this last deployment, every deployment, I tried to pick something. I tried to learn something new, or do something new for myself. Sometimes it's good, like drawing. Sometimes it's not so good. One deployment, I got really really good at Madden, like crazy good at Madden. Uh,
Huh.
I was playing all Madden, and I was just killing the computer. I was killing everybody in my office at the time. So it can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing, but just trying to get better. And the more I looked into drawing, it's just like that's where it all starts. I mean, you start with basically a stick figure, and then you can just kind of shape it around, and that's how a lot of my drawings have gone. And you can see some of those video. I actually uploaded a couple of my videos of the drawings that I did with just a mouse and MS Paint, and you can see where I started with was just basically like, oh, here's the body, and you got stick arms and stick feet, and here's the hips and so forth, and I just kind of built off that and just went from there. Took me a long time to do those, but it's, like you said, it's the starting point. I'm sure Michelangelo just didn't wake up one day and start sketching the Sistine Chapel. It's got to
It's
put in
true.
some time, like you said. Got to put in the time. Got to put in the effort.
It's what it is. That's always just the thought I always has. Just put in the time and the effort, and it's with anything. Like, it's you can apply that to a lot. Though, of course, exercise. Like, if you want to hit a certain uh to an extent, body type you want to go for. Like, look at The Rock.
Oh
That
man,
the man that I don't know if he even sleeps is The Rock, and
yeah.
holy crap! Just if you look at his older movies or just when he was a wrestler to now, he's just so much more muscular and just more, depending on the movie, how more defined he looks.
Oh, definitely. I think he
And
gets up at like 4 o'clock in the morning or something to start working
uh,
out. And you saw the I guess it would be commercial he did with
the Siri commercial, or
Siri commercial. Yeah, where it's just like trying to fit everything and the kitchen sink into his schedule, and it's just crazy.
he's such a busy schedule guy. Like, it's, you want to see the absolute the opposite to procrastination is The Rock. That's what he is, because he's constantly working on something
Yeah.
crazy. Like, just that's what a timekeeper is. Someone who can just really manage their time is The Rock, and he does so many things. He's doing like movies and shows, and more movies and shows and appearances, and I don't know how the heck anyone can do it, but he does, and that's crazy. It's just crazy.
I think he's figured out a way to put more hours in the day. That's the only explanation I can
Find
come
out
up
he's
with.
actually he's just a time lord.
He's
Figured it out.
got a little pocket dimension he goes to, and he sleeps for 8 hours. But here it's like one
Uh,
hour, and
there you go.
then he comes back. It's the only viable explanation that's possible for how he's able to do like all the voiceovers and all the work that he does.
I'll buy it. I would buy that because geez, he just does so much. Yeah. Oh, that too. Well, he did like what, Moana. He was Maui, so he's just doing so much. Oh, this is the everything. This podcast is wherever the hell my mind goes, or the guest mind goes. And the question I gotta ask, because you are a parent, your thoughts on Disney movies? Because
I
in every movie, one or both the parents die, and how does that feel as a parent? Bringing your kid to a Disney movie, when that is always the case.
it's just a translation from comics. I mean, look at all the comic books and how many superheroes have their parents die. So Batman, his parents are dead. Superman's parents are dead. I mean, the list could keep going on and on. A lot of tragedy,
True.
but but most of the time, my daughter never even really noticed. It was never like, oh, Daddy, her parents are dead, and it was never that. It was more of a the songs, the bright colors, and so forth. It depends on their age, but
Hmm.
for the most part, like right now, I have my daughter just turned 8 years old. She's not really into the Disney as much anymore. Like
Oh,
she was big into Frozen when it came out. What was that, 2 years ago,
yeah.
3 years ago? And then Moana came out, of
Mhm.
course, this last year, and she could take or leave that. But my 2 year old granddaughter, ugh, I hate saying that, but my 2 year old granddaughter just loves Moana, loves all the songs. She'll sit through it, 800 million times a day. Uh, so it all depends. Disney definitely has their um, formula in place for capturing the younger viewer, the younger audience, if you will. So shiny songs, upbeat, so forth. But you have to admit, Moana did not have any dead parents.
True. That's very true.
Did have a dead friend though. That was the only thing. Was the chief's
Oh
brother or
yeah.
friend? I think it
Yeah,
was
his
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 friend.
friend. Yeah,
His friend.
what was it? Moana, they did so much effort to just subvert, to just be different. Because Maui calls her princess. She's like, I'm not a princess. You're a chieftain's daughter. You're a princess. Like, they did stuff like that. And there was no love story for once, finally. And I don't know. I've listened to the Moana soundtrack at least a couple hundred times myself. I really like that movie, I guess.
I like the soundtrack. I'm a huge soundtrack fan.
Hmm.
I love Disney soundtracks, musicals in general. I'm a huge fan of musicals, as nerdy or geeky as that makes me sound. But I love Fiddler. I used to have Fiddler on the Roof CD.
Ooh.
I would listen to Fiddler on the Roof all the time. Music Man. I still have the Music Man CD somewhere around here. So I like musical numbers. And I like musicals, in all honesty. If I could sing better, I might actually go out for a musical someday.
This is a funny thing. I took acting earlier this year, and my professor, she was a voice actor, so I got some tips from her. But she was talking about musicals, and what she said was what they found with musicals was when they did brain scans of people while they're watching musicals, and what they found was when people see musicals, they actually feel the same energy as the people on stage. Like
Yeah,
the same brain patterns going on. Like they feel like they're dancing and singing. I'm like, that is insane, really. And you get it, like musicals are quite catchy. They'll grab you. And so that was pretty interesting to hear. The only musicals I've seen Heather's. Um yeah, they made a musical out of that movie.
I was gonna say that was a movie. I remember the movie. I don't remember. I didn't know they actually made a music. How do you make a musical out of Heather's? I'm gonna have to
it's
go
in
look this up.
it's
That,
insane.
that
It was
is
pretty
that's
good.
crazy.
It was pretty good, pretty intense. I saw Wicked, pretty good. Wicked's insane. The amount of production value in Wicked. And I've only heard Hamilton. Have you heard Hamilton though?
I've heard some of the songs. I've heard people rave about it, but I haven't actually seen it or heard the soundtrack. But I've heard people rave that it's the greatest musical since West Side Story or whatever.
Ooh,
But if you're into musicals, I definitely highly recommend. I mean, just some of the classics. West Side Story is great. Um, the Romeo and Juliet retelling, I guess. I wouldn't say
basically,
modern telling because it was like 1950s that when it came out or whatever it was.
yeah.
But West Side Story is good. Oklahoma's good. Fiddler on the Roof. If you have time for Fiddler on the Roof, Fiddler on the Roof is amazing, hilarious. Tevye is just. I think you would get a huge kick out of Tevye. He's a hilarious character. He's the dad in the story in the musical, but he's hilarious, especially when he's singing about if I were a rich man, and he's talking about, well, if I were rich, I'd be kind of humble and I'd have this big huge house and I would do it all so I could, go to the church and pray every day because he's Jewish. And I can't recommend it enough. The only downside to Fiddler on the Roof is just it's really long. It's a really
Huh.
long musical. I think it's like
Okay.
3 hours long.
Hamilton's 4 hours.
Wow. Okay. I take that
Like,
back.
it's like holy crap. Like, I like Hamilton's 4 hours. Or just even if you do Shakespearean plays, like Hamlet, another Ham is like 4 hours. Actually, two and a no, three. It's a freaking long play. Like, there's a lot of really long things.
Mhm.
At least we're not the Greeks, where like a play was like 18 hours, just one play.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
oh,
what else you gonna do besides get
true,
like
very true. What else are you gonna do back then? Crazy. Um, oh god, if you could see, was it the old Smite stuff, the voices I did then, and just trying to do voices now,
Mhm.
very different. The only one that probably stays the same always is Fenrir because it's a certain voice.
Right.
Like, because when you're doing Fenrir, like, there's nothing else I can do with that thing. There's no. It's just in a set area and it just goes. Well, everything else you can go up and down a little bit with it.
Very gravelly. You can't do like a high pitched Fenrir.
Oh, jeez.
You know.
You know what would probably bring me back to Smite is if they made kid versions of every god. Like, they have Kid Hades and Kid Ra. I'm like, oh my god, I kind of want to play Kid Ra. If they
Cheeky Rock.
did little puppy Fenrir,
Mm,
oh god. Besides the Ratatosker Fenrir, like,
right.
that would probably bring me back in because I don't. I just liked Mini Hades, and then I see Mini Ra, and it looks too damn cute. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to play Mini Ra. Just for fun. And so if they did like Puppy Fenrir and just whatever else, I would like, okay, I kind of want to come back a little bit.
Mm,
But oh, the journey of voices is interesting, and I've talked to quite a few voice people. I was at Comic Con, and so I got to meet some voice people. I got to meet a voice director and a voice actor and some other things.
mhm.
And it's talking to different people. You get different advice from different people, and the first overlap I've ever gotten was finally besides them talking general when they talk to the crowds, it's like take breaks and things like that. But the one that I've heard a couple say is take acting classes, which
Yes.
makes sense. It's voice acting,
Yeah.
so it makes perfect sense. And really, it's what we're doing the voice LPs right now,
Mhm.
and that's to improve the voice work and everything.
Right. Right.
And that's my way of going on the grindstone on that is just doing voices every day to get better at them and just make more voices, I guess, and improve on that. It's an interesting journey doing that because that is hell on the throat.
Yeah. Some of them can be. I've started watching your Phoenix Wright voice playthrough. Is that what
Yeah.
you're calling it? Let's play
Mhm.
voiceover or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Voice LP
VOLP.
is what I'm calling it, yeah.
Voice LP. There you go. Lost Scarf. Patent pending. Voice LP. But
I want to believe I'm the first one, but no, there's other people who've done it, but I want to do it enough that it'd be something very interesting.
well, there's a couple of similar ideas out there that I've seen. I don't want to burst your bubble,
Of
but I
course.
mean, keep it up. One thing I would suggest to you is I started following a guy called John Bailey, and he's the guy who does the Honest trailers.
Oh,
He's the voice of the Honest trailers, so he'll be like, "In a world," he's kind of got one of
yeah.
those deeper voices. I wouldn't really say as deep, but he does impressions as well. So he does. He's done. He does a pretty kick butt Christopher Walken impression that I've
Ooh.
seen him do, and he'll play a video game, and then he'll play it as like a character. Sometimes from that game, like I think he did Michael Fassbender, and he did a playthrough of not playthrough, but he did a one shot, if you will, of Assassin's Creed because the movie was coming out, and
Yeah.
he's pretty spot on, and as Christopher Walken is Christopher Walken, it's amazing.
Nice. Oh God, really?
He
Wow.
he's got a fever. It's prescription's more cowbell. You gotta have more cowbell.
Oh wow.
But I have a lot of respect for anybody who can not only create voiceover stuff, but also you have to think about it is maintaining that voice, for any number
Ooh.
and any combination of dialogue. You just got to think about it. It's like, how would this voice say X, Y, or Z? The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, kind of situation. So and you got to get the inflection right and the pronunciation. And if you have a little lisp or you have another speech, not impediment, but oddity, I guess, or uh,
Yeah. That's why I've always liked voice actors so much because they just make voices or they do something can be quite prolific in their voices in a way. What's crazy is Tara Strong.
yeah,
Like she's voiced so many female characters, and they do have distinct differences to them. And when you actually hear Tara Strong's actual voice, you're like, "Whoa, that's her real voice!"
yeah,
Like,
she's
what?
hilarious. Uh,
Yeah, she is.
but and to go back to John Bailey, if
Mm.
you follow his YouTube channel, he actually does voiceover 101 stuff. So he'll be like,
Oh,
if you're looking, you know, practice, get yourself a demo tape together, and this is where you can get some scripts to read from this website. Here's a couple of websites you can go to, like voices123 or voiceover123.com or
huh.
something like that. You can put yourself up there for free and look around for maybe some voice acting work, because there's always stuff going around, local radio
Mhm.
commercials, nothing, countrywide or huge,
Yeah,
for first off, but something to get your feet wet or to make a little bit of money in. So something for you to look into if you want
that is
to.
that is interesting. I didn't know about that. No, that is one of the more. That's one of the interesting things about doing these podcasts is as I'm talking to different people, I'm learning from them. I'm definitely learning from all the different people I'm talking to, and so that's something I did not know about. So gotta check that out for sure. That's interesting. That is cool.
Yeah,
Um, I just yeah, there's always something new to learn. That's why you talk to people. Why we're not islands. We can learn from each other a lot. That's what happens. And that's kind of why all those collaboration groups happen. Like everyone's just trying to collab and learn from each other or grow together, stuff like that. And that's why we ran into each other in multiple collaboration groups.
multiple, several. Uh,
Yeesh.
yeah, no, I mean, I enjoy collaborating with people. It's just hard, uh, trying to make some of the time work, and given the tools that we had in Smite,
Ugh.
I would think that some of the stuff that we created is pretty dang, technically sound for what we had to work with.
Oh
Like,
dear God,
oh,
yes.
I have some chickenware, I have some bubble gum. Let me smash these together and see if I can make a ham radio.
Yeah, everyone had to MacGyver so many things because Smite was not the best thing to work with.
Yeah, I remember your
Uh,
what was it? It was the machinima about Hui and his ricochet.
oh,
Like,
whoa.
yeah, I remember you posting about that, having to get the shot over and
Oh,
over again and trying to the scene and the timing and all that other stuff. I remember the
that
headache you were tweeting about that.
that was weeks of work. That 1 2 minute video was weeks of work. It's just oh my God, that so much effort because it was yeah. You try to be technical. Like this is when I was really experimenting. This is a little bit before I quit. Like if I didn't, maybe I would have done more of these technical. Like because I wanted to do like technically how the balls did he make that happen kind of videos. And so I did that with the Hou Yi ricochet shot, where it's he only bounces 2 or 3 times off things. And the whole idea was it bounces, 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 just everywhere, and then as one continuous shot. And so it was meticulously just going around and making the shot, seeing where it bounced, and then just continuing the shots and doing it a bunch of times. Where one of these shots is going to line up to be the right shot I'm looking for, kind of thing. Where it's just doing like a bunch of shots in this kind of cone, and then this is where it landed. So do a bunch of shots from here to here in a cone, and then over and over again. And so it was just so many shots, so many recordings, and finding the ones that lined up. And oh god, recording that in Spectator was a freaking chore. That took a whole day twice.
Spectator is not very
Uh,
friendly. But I
oh
digress. Do
man.
you ever wonder, and I've always wanted to know this,
No.
just from me working on videos, for me, there always comes a certain point where I'm just like, F it, man. And it's just not worth it. I've been working at this for X number of hours, and it's just, it's, it is what it is kind of thing, you're just like, I'm done. I can't look at this anymore. I can't do anymore. Because if I keep fiddling with it, I'm just gonna keep messing with it and never produce it. So do you ever reach that point? Because I get the feeling from our interactions and from our time together, which has been very special to me. But I have a feeling from our interactions that you're kind of a bit of a perfectionist. Don't take that the wrong way, but
I wish I was a perfectionist. No, it's
exacting,
oh what?
exacting, then maybe would be a
Um
better word.
I'm not sure. It is. I wanna get the perfect shot, and if I can't, then I have to make it work. I've learned to adapt. Like you have to adapt, I guess. And it's like if this doesn't work, well then you gotta. How can I fiddle it to work, or do I have to go in and make another shot? Do I have to take another shot to do it? And so I'll take another shot to do it. And so I don't meet the deadlines. That's what happens. Like when they did the weekly things, like, all right, well, I'm gonna get this done 2 weeks after the deadline for that because I wanted. Yeah, I couldn't get the shot, or it's partially because that damn spectator. Oh my god! But uh, it. I don't know. It's sometimes there are limitations you just have to work with them. But if you can make the shot happen, you make the shot happen. I don't. I'm a perfectionist who can't be perfect, so I know that. That's the thing. So it's like, all right, this is the best I can do. Let's make it work. Like I've
Okay.
learned that you have to adapt. I guess that's what
Jinx,
I've learned.
Jinx can feel free to splatter something on there. Objection.
Oh, jeez. Oh, the things Jinx has had to do. I'm like, okay, well, we can do this things, right? And it's like, no, no, we can't. Well, we can with 10 hours of work.
All right.
Yeah. Um.
Speaking of
It's
Jinx,
me
one
too.
of these days I will. Is it like Teller? Like she's
Yeah,
like
she's
Teller and
Teller.
Penn and Teller.
Uh, it,
I will hear.
it's funny you mentioned Teller. Penn and Teller. Well, the love or hate them politically, just because they've gotten way more. What's the word?
Act.
They've gotten more talky over the years about what they feel about things. But those guys are dedicated to work. They've done literally thousands of shows. They do not stop working. It's kind of crazy with those two. They're constantly crafting and making new tricks. They are constantly doing shows. They make a schedule and they stick to it. Penn has been in the hospital a few times. He leaves the hospital, does the show, goes back to the hospital. He's done that a few times. He's kind of ridiculous like that.
Mhm.
I don't. I think Pet Teller's in the same thing. Like they don't do the show without the other. Um, uh, they're maybe a little too crazy about it because Penn has worked the day each parent died. He worked those days as well, and Teller things happen to Teller, and it's just kind of crazy. Their work ethic is ridiculous. Well, they just keep performing, and they've literally done tens of thousands of shows because they've kept at it for that long. And so it's just funny you brought that up because they've been at it. And the weird thing that I always find weird about it is they're not friends. They're just two guys who work together. That's it. They don't hang out.
Oh, so
I've
they're
always
like
found that interesting.
Mythbusters.
Yeah, they're like Mythbusters, but as far as I know, they don't have any dislike for each other. They've just always had a professional relationship this
Right.
whole time. What I know is with Adam and Jamie, they have their good days and their bad days together, is my understanding.
Hmm.
It's funny though, because Mythbusters was Jamie's thing, but he's like, I'm not that interesting. We need another guy here, and that's how Adam shows up,
Right.
and that's interesting that relationship. Um,
Always got to have your Abbott to your Costello, or
oh
Costello to
yeah,
your Abbott, I guess it would be.
mm-hmm. Or your Abbott to your Abbott and don't work out.
It just doesn't work out because I mean, you have one straight person uh, and then you have your goofball person.
It's still one of my favorite ones of all time is Who's on First.
Oh, it's hilarious. I mean,
Oh man.
just the timing on it, just to listen to it over and over again. I mean, when we did our collaboration on Who's on Hunter,
Oh yeah.
you know,
I remember that.
it's still funny. The idea is still funny, but I can just hear it. I can hear uh, listening to that and then comparing it to the actual Who's on First. I mean,
Ooh.
you could tell they've just done it so many times. They know the exact moment when to be like, who's on who's on first. I'm not talking about that guy. I don't know. Third base. It's just those pauses and comedic timing is just amazing. There's no better example of trying to figure out timing for a joke than go watching Who's on First.
Oh yeah. Just the art of comedy is amazing. Another one is the Marx Brothers, which is amazing. Is the Marx Brothers, they would do a tour, they'd do a show, and they'd catch all the parts that landed and the parts that did not land, and then they would rework those for the next show, and the next show, and the next show, and the next show. And when the tour was over, they had a show where people were laughing the entire movie. I mean, the entire show. And they turned that into the movies.
Ah,
That's interesting how they're just meticulously working on something for months, and then it becomes the movie.
and then I mean they still do that today. I was watching. This was years ago. I watched. This was back when Dane Cook was huge. Show. I think it was around 2008. I want to say
Ooh.
maybe a little bit before that. 2006. Dating myself, but and it was him going on tour with some of his stand-up comedian brothers and friends, and it showed one guy. He started his bit like he was like, well, he started with the idea. He's like, well, what if people are always telling me I kill them with kindness? So he built on that idea. It was like, well, what if I literally killed people with kindness? Be like opening the door for somebody and be like, oh, thank you, and they fall over and die. And that was the whole joke. And so you saw him tell it for the first time, and he'd be like, oh, hey, this is a new joke, and blah blah blah. And then you go into the joke, and Dane was like, hey, don't tell him that it's that you're working this joke or that this is your first time or whatever. Just go into it, and you can see the evolution of the joke from where he started with, and then at the end of it is a more polished. I wouldn't say it was the funniest joke I've ever heard, but you could definitely see where he was able to get more humor out of it and apply the art of comedy, like you're saying, to this joke to make it work. So I thought
And
that was interesting. So they still do that today, but I did not know that about the Marx Brothers. That's very interesting.
it's just always just working like what is it? Yeah, you always have to rub your pearls to keep their luster. Uh Keep them shiny.
I've never heard that phrase before. That's funny.
um it's a quote from some like Catwoman type character. They're like you make sure you're always rubbing your pearls because if you don't then they'll lose their shine. Which he says like keep your skills up or else you get rusty kind of thing.
Right?
And
Huh.
yeah,
I'm
just rub your
usually,
pearls.
I'm usually, I'm usually pretty good with quotes and dialogue. I don't
uh
recall that one.
so many references.
Even from Holly Berry's terrible cat one, which I
Oh
have
jeez.
seen, but I only saw once.
Oh
So
wow.
maybe that was from that movie, but I'm not going to go back and watch it just to make sure.
There's so many Catwomans. Just talking about comics for a moment. Catwoman and Batman getting married. Is that going to happen or not? You think?
I don't know. I used to keep up. I used to be really big into DC. Also late 90s, early 2000s. I got a crap ton of comic book stuff over here.
I read a lot of Spawn and Deadpool, but like DC Rebirth had just brought me back. DC Rebirth has been amazing in my opinion. It's been pretty good.
Have they gone away from the multiverse again? Are they still in the multiverse? If they're
They're
still in the
playing with it.
multiverse,
Uh, there's an event coming up soon. Are you familiar with the Watchmen?
yeah, yep.
those books were amazing. God, those books were amazing. But they're bringing the Watchmen in. Something with the Watchmen is coming up really soon as a big event for DC, or at least for Batman and Flash. I know for sure, and maybe Superman. But the
I think
Watchmen
they
are coming.
I think they did that event with the smiley face, the
Yeah,
button,
yeah,
the
the
button,
button.
but
And
but
so when I went to Comic Con, they gave a bunch of buttons for the
mhm.
countdown for it, and I believe it's supposed to be for the holiday. It's coming, or
Huh.
if it's happening right now, then whoops, I haven't been paying attention the last couple of weeks because I've just been busy. But the big event with Watchmen is coming because they teased Mr. Fantastic a couple months ago. Not Mr. Manhattan, Mr. Fantastic. Oh my
Like,
god, if that
wow,
happens.
Watchmen changed
Whoa.
so much.
Whoa, so that's what happened to Fantastic Four. Whoa, they came over to DC.
The
Okay.
amalgam is back. The amalgam universe is back. Mr.
Oh jeez.
Fantastic. But
Oh.
Mr. Manhattan.
Oh my god, what was it? They spent, I think it was 60,000 or 600,000 just to animate his penis in that movie. Like
I
the
knew you
amount
were
of
gonna say
money on
that.
that.
I knew you were gonna say
You
that.
did? Okay.
Everybody talks about
That's the
that,
only
but you
that's the only
can't.
fact.
You cannot talk about Watchmen and not bring up freaking Doctor Manhattan's blue CGI dong. I just saw the what was it Frost, the other Frost on Twitter. He was asking about it. It was like, "Oh, Watchmen, is it worth watching?" And I was like, "Oh, let me look in the comments. Yep, somebody's talking about Manhattan's blue dong,
I
of
don't
course."
it was a visually amazing movie and all anyone remembers is the blue dawn. That is it. What does
I
that
don't.
say?
So many people hate that movie or don't like that movie, and I don't
I,
get it. It is almost a shot for shot recreation of what's in the book. Like I have the graphic novel. I've read the graphic
mhm.
novel 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, and don't get me wrong, the movie is a pale imitation of the actual original story. So if you liked the movie, go read the book because you will love the book. I mean, the plot points are still the same, but there's still little nuances and stuff in that are
Yeah.
in the comic book that they just don't have time for, or that they couldn't fit into the movie. But that being said, the movie is just about a shot for shot recreation of what's in the comic book. I mean, the what is it, the Citadel or whatever tower he ends up building in
On Mars?
Mars,
Oh god,
on
yeah.
Mars in the comic
Oh.
book. That is almost exactly shot for shot, line for line, what was drawn in the comic book. So I don't understand why people had so much dislike for this movie that was almost the exact same storyline. I mean, they changed one thing about it at the end.
Mhm.
I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but they changed what I feel is kind of a little bit of a minor detail at the end, as to who is to blame for something.
I thought it
But
was a pretty smart change, honestly, because if you read the comics, and a lot of people did, they're expecting that, and then they don't get that. I thought that was a pretty good change.
yeah, I mean, it's maybe it was a danged if you do and danged if you don't situation where it's like,
Very true.
well, you can either do an exact replica of what was in the comic books and add nothing new, and people will complain about that, or you add something new and be like, oh, you're changing a classic, you know, which is true. I mean, it's a great story. V for Vendetta, kind of the same lines. A lot of people, I think, less people hated that one than they did
There's
than they
too
did
many
watch.
douchebags about that movie. Oh my god. A lot of very anarchistic people who don't know what anarchy is because of E for Vendetta. They just really like that movie.
Right.
That one's very different from the comic though. In a lot of ways, it's similar in a lot of ways, but different in others.
Hmm.
But Watchmen, it was a fine movie. I think it does pale in comparison to the comic, just because there's so much more going on in the comic. Like
Right.
as big as that movie was, it didn't fit everything. And how could you? There's just so much.
No, there were some slight
Oh,
nods to it, though. Like at the end of Watchmen, you see the kid with the glasses who's reading the comic book, uh, right in New York City, and in the comic book, you see this kid reading. You see him every so often. He's reading
yeah.
a comic book uh, in the comic book, so he's it's a play within a play, if you will,
That was the
that
one
they
thing
couldn't fit in.
that I do find interesting that they took out because that's such an interesting part of the comic is the pirate ships, is the pirate comic,
Mhm.
and the newsstand guy and the kid. Like they took out the majority of that. Like there, you see a little bit of it, I think, just as a nod to it. But it was
Right,
such an interesting, yeah, play within a play, and how it's kind of in a way just telling you what the story's about, just differently.
right.
So it's interesting seeing that taken out, and you could argue it does take the spirit out of it, but it is something that, as far as a movie goes, they have to make concessions. They have to cut things out, and yeah, that's a big chunk that could be cut out, and they did. But there's a director's cut with it, and I haven't seen that, and so I don't know.
I don't know either. And that's what some people were saying to Frost was like, "Oh, make sure you watch the director's cut, or make sure you watch the special edition, or whatever, for all the extra footage." But I really don't think. I don't know. Me personally, it's just my personal opinion. I don't really think in the movie it. I think it would have caused more confusion to have his scenes inserted in there, as opposed to just removing them, because they make sense. And I mean, they kind of make sense in the comic book. But they also kind of throw off the
It
tempo
does.
of
Uh,
it. So
there's so much in the comic that throws off the tempo anyway. Like the last couple pages of Watchmen, where it's just interviews or whatever.
true.
Like one is the interview with Silk Spectre's mother, the original one,
Yep.
and she's talking about, and this is just all world building that you don't necessarily have to read, but you have to because it's part of the world. Because it's the world is limited to just 12 issues at this point before they wrote all the other stuff later on. And that was the thing with Alan Moore, was he was creating the world as he was writing it, and so he had to give you backstory as you're going forward. And yeah, you have the interview with Silk Spectre where she's hinting at, because people are like, well, is she dating the first hero ever, the guy with the noose? It's like, and she's hinting that he's actually gay and stuff like that. And so you're
Mhm.
learning about him, and you're learning about all these other characters because she talks about other heroes at the time. And so he's building the world with these interviews, or I can't remember some of the other things at the end. But the book is, in a lot of ways, it's such a weird flow that you could argue just that alone is why it would be really hard to make a movie. But they still made the movie, and it was pretty competent, I think. It just has that Zack Snyder's flair that either you like it or you don't like it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's one of his. I'm not a huge Zack Snyder fan, but I like that one. That one 300, of course.
My problem with Zack Snyder is maybe two things. His love of just having really drab colors. Like he just
Right.
loves the dark filter.
Yeah.
And he's a little too gratuitous, I think sometimes. He pushes a little too far, where a little less could have been more. In
Right.
some ways. An example would be when we see Owlman fighting people, he's giving them contusions and bones are coming out of their body because he's hitting
Right.
them so hard. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's Owlman seems like a guy who would not be that rough to me.
He's
He's
not.
yeah, and so like Jesus Christ. Okay, he's a bit more rough than I think it'd be. Well, Rorschach, I'd believe that because he's
Oh,
the
that
world
was
is
crazy.
broken, Rorschach,
Oh man,
and
Rorschach is
so
an amazing character.
like it's Rorschach and Owlman are two different sides of Batman in a way to me. Like Rorschach is the just the deep, dark, gritty stuff of Batman, and then Owlman is the more campier, nicer part of Batman. And so them combined as a partnership just feels right.
Right.
And so I just don't see Owlman being that cruel, while Rorschach, he's seen such ugliness that he can only do cruelty at that point in his life. I don't know, like it's the we're just talking about Watchmen all of a sudden, but it's such a deconstruction, like in a true honest deconstruction was what that comic was, and it was so good, so well done.
Mhm.
And you just see, I wouldn't say imitators, but just other tries that just didn't hit it the same way.
I think that's why Alan Moore was so successful. I mean, his take on comic book and comic book heroes, and I'm not sure on the whole backstory of the comic book ethics council or whatever. You know, he used to have that stamp on there that said, "Hey, this is uh, morally and ethically okay." From the comic, there's some comic book council or guild or something
Huh.
that used to have to stamp on your comic books to say, the hero's a hero and the villain's a villain, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I think maybe Alan Moore was kind of a product of his times, and he was able to kind of farm out those interesting ideas of Rorschach and the Dark Knight. Was it the Dark Knight Rises Returns?
Dark Knight
Or
Returns is Frank Miller. But he
Or
did
was it
make
Frank
the
Miller?
Killing Joke.
Killing
Oh God,
Joke. There you go.
Frank Miller's lost his goddamn mind, by the way.
Okay. Sure he
But
has. Alan Moore's
ah,
Alan Moore's not that far behind. He's
yeah, Alan Moore's crazy too. Oh my God.
kind of out there too. But
Some comic book people, they push the envelope in ways that are interesting, but also just downright insane. But that's some digressing there. Oh no, Alan Moore's gone everywhere. He's gone across the map in the world he's created,
mhm.
and just I just like how the Killing Joke was just he actually hated making it, and yet it's one of the favorite things people have of his. You don't get to choose what you're known for. You don't get to.
Can I admit something and have not have the internet hate me for it?
What?
I really don't like the Killing Joke. As far as a Batman, as far as a Batman story, even as
It's
far as like a
it's supposed to be
Joker
a Joker
story, it's
story, but
supposed to
it's
be a
such a
Joker.
rough story.
It's supposed to be a Joker origin story, but it's even not even that, because I mean, towards the end, it's just like, well, this may be one of his
Mm-hmm.
multiple. He thinks his background is a multiple choice test, and this just may be the one he answers with today. And it's just like, well, great. You're telling me a story that may or may not have happened, or may not actually matter, and his backstory and so forth. And I mean, I get the plot point, and I get the theme of it. Of one person having a bad day can push them over the edge and
Mm-hmm.
make them lose their mind. But at the same time, it's just I didn't really care for it as far as the story goes. So
It the one
hate.
thing is it takes Joker to such a brutal level. Like he's really brutal in that, and I don't know. It comes down to what kind of Batman you're a fan of.
Mhm,
Like how campy do you like Batman? How brutal do you like Batman? And how brutal and campy do you like his villains?
mhm,
Because you got like super campy Adam West, which was fun. Like I remember watching that was fun. You have more serious, but there's still some humor to it. The animated series Batman, a lot of the cartoon Batman, but then the comics they have so many different versions of Batman where he's really gritty, really grim dark,
mhm,
and so are the villains. And I don't know. Joker is really cruel in that one. He's really cruel in a lot of the newer ones too. Like New 52 Joker's pretty messed up. I'd say Rebirth Joker isn't as bad because he's kind of not around right now.
yeah.
He's actually not around at all right now. But I don't know. This is the thing about comics is the different interpretations and ways people make characters. My biggest problem is whenever they have characters do crossovers where they make them really terrible versions of themselves.
Mm,
Like if you have Batman, like there's the one where Batman gets absolutely destroyed by Wonder Woman, and it's a Wonder Woman comic. So it's like if somebody doesn't like Batman, putting him in a Wonder Woman comic, of course she's gonna destroy him because he's being really dumb.
right,
And you'll have comics where Wonder Woman's in Batman or Superman, and she's being really dumb. That's my
right.
one problem is I wish like when they do crossovers, they'd be a little more respectful to the other characters. You can have them be mind controlled or just for some reason there's a difference in opinion, but sometimes just make them outright. This is not the character at all kind of situation.
So to bring that back into our earlier discussion of
Oh
Zack
jeez.
Snyder, back to Zack Snyder, Batman, Batman vs Superman. What are your thoughts?
uh, what was the point of that movie?
Mm,
I I don't understand what's going on with Batman in that movie because like Batman's my guy. When it comes to DC, Batman's my guy. Superman's always been cool and all, but Batman's my guy. And
mhm,
they both have terrible motivations and terrible reasoning, both of them. Batman's like, I blame Superman for all this crap. I'm gonna go kill him. And
I have to stop you because you're killing people. Well, I have
yeah,
to stop you because you're killing people.
yeah, and Alfred has the best thing. Like Alfred just says a line that should have put Bruce in his place, which was him becoming more cruel. Like he's like, and then he just says this line, which is amazing. Was just, and I can't remember it. How amazing is that? Um, where
Super.
he's basically saying that Batman's becoming more cruel, and
Right.
Batman just shrugs it off.
Right.
And my one thing is just the reasoning of the Batman brand gets people killed. I'm like, no, that's not get them killed. He's gonna be like, man, Batman's a real asshole. He branded that guy. He's a real jerk. How does that get people killed?
Right.
Criminals hate Batman. I don't understand. The best scene in that movie for Batman was when the cops are finding him, and it's kind of horror movie, and he's just kind of really scary.
Mhm.
That was an amazing scene. That right there, I'm like, oh yeah, making Batman kind of scary was great. when he goes action hero and starts murdering people, like, uh, no. Like, you can argue whether or not Batman's allowed to kill or not, depending on what era of Batman, anyway. But I've always seen him as this is weird. I've never seen him as a killer. That's probably from the Batman animated series. But the movies, he's always killed people. He's killed people since the maybe not Adam West, but the Michael Keaton Batman has killed people. I don't know if I don't remember if Adam West has ever killed anyone.
No.
But Michael Keaton Batman, which is like the first Batman movie besides that one, he's killed people in that one. And so Batman's always killed people in the movies, but in the comics, True. I don't remember if he's ever killed anyone besides been forced to. And in the cartoons, he's never really killed anyone. And so I guess it depends on what you've seen and what you consider your Batman, I guess.
I like the Under the Red. Have you seen Under the Red Hood? The animated?
That movie? One? Oh, God. Yeah.
With him and Jason Todd and...
That Endpoint?
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's the Batman I like, where he's just like, God, no, it's too easy.
Yeah, like, I love that one.
That was one of the best exchanges and one of the best lines in that whole movie. It was just like, why couldn't you? I mean, I could understand Two-Face, or I can understand the Riddler.
Or Riddler, yeah.
But why not this guy? You know, if he had done this to you, I would have ended him. Is it too hard? And he's like, no, it would have been too damn easy. It's like, oh, that's the Batman I love.
Yeah,
that's the Batman I like. It's just like, no, I can't kill somebody because it'd just be too easy. It's like, where do I stop after that? Like, yeah. How do I decide? You know, who do I kill? But to answer your question about what was the point of Batman vs Superman movie, my theory is that it was just to ruin and get rid of so many great scenes and so many great plot points and just pour them down the flippin' toilet.
There are fans who are like, this is the best comic movie ever made. I'm like, no, you have a problem. Like, I love DC. Between the comics, DC is my comics. I like DC comics a lot. Deadpool's the only Marvel comic I read. I love DC comics. But Marvel movies are killing it compared to DC movies. But animated? DC is a monster at animated movies. Those are amazing. Like you just said, Under the Red Hood. That one's really good. Some of the more Justice League ones are pretty good. The Batmans are just amazing.
Judas Contract? Teen Titans one, that was a little creepy at times, but overall it was good. The scenes with Terra and Deathstroke were a little pervy, I guess, if you will. They made me a little uncomfortable.
Maybe the newest year, not so much. I was at Comic-Con. I got to see Batman and Harley Quinn, that was a journey. It's a Harley Quinn movie, not a Batman movie, and Batman's the butt of the jokes in that. So if you're a fan of Harley Quinn, you might like it. If you're a fan of Batman, you might not like it.
Right.
Funny things happen in that thing, but it's such a, and it's Bruce Timm making it. Bruce Timm made it, and True. He's like, after the Killing Joke, I needed to laugh. Is the quote that he said, and because the Killing Joke is so dark, and so he just wanted to have. It's a funny movie, but it's at Batman's expense, and. Animated movies are just really good. There's The Son of Batman.
That was good.
That one's really good. The animated movies are just really good. I like those. Of course, I don't think it's the first one, but one of the first ones is, of course, Night of the Phantasm, which is a classic.
Oh, yes.
And Sub-Zero, which is also a classic. Like, Batman has had amazing animated movies.
Even Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, that was a great movie, too.
Oh, God. Was it? It's Jason Todd, isn't it? When it's little Jason Todd, isn't it? Or
it's Tim Drake.
Oh, it's Tim Drake.
Yep.
That whole thing is amazing. Kids, watch those movies.
Go watch those movies. Don't watch the live action stuff. They're terrible. I mean, Wonder Woman was B-, C+ area.
It was.
But all those other ones are garbage. Suicide Squad. You want to watch a good Suicide Squad movie? Go watch Batman: Assault on Arkham.
Yes, that was really good.
That is a good Suicide Squad movie. That is Suicide Squad done right. Suicide Squad, they're actually allowed to be villains. They're actually fighting against each other, not working with each other. Oh, it's just amazing. Go watch it. Don't watch Suicide Squad. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Don't waste any brain cells thinking about that piece of garbage. The only movie that was worse than that year, and I will fight anybody, whatever, to the death over was Batman vs Superman, and
Ooh.
that's only because Batman vs Superman, like I said, they wasted so many good plot points,
Oh.
so many good scenes, like the Dark Knight Rises, like we were talking about Frank Miller, the kryptonite gas that came from that comic book movie, and now it's just me. I was sitting through that movie, I'm watching the scene, and at the end of it, I was like, you know what? Nobody's ever going to be able to use this plot point again. They just wasted it. You just flushed it down the toilet, because anytime you do it in a movie hereafter, it's going to be like, oh, they already did it. Batman vs Superman. Oh, that movie's a turd.
Yeah, it's not great. I don't know. I don't know how the hell people think it's great. I'm worried about Justice League because Wonder Woman gave hope. By
Wonder Woman.
comparison, so everything post Christopher Nolan, whether you like or hated the third one, everything post Christopher Nolan though has just not been so great with DC movies. Wonder Woman creates hope again,
Mm-hmm.
and she's about hope. There were some points in that movie that were not so great, but there's some points that were pretty good. The No Man's Land scene was amazing.
Right.
Like, that was amazing. And they could have made it terrible. She could have said, oh, it's no man's land? Well, I'm not a man. She could have said that and made it terrible. I was waiting for her to say it, and she didn't. I was so happy.
I think it went without saying. Even without it being said, I was still a little cringe. It was still a little cringe for me. It's like, this is no man's land. I'm like,
they could have made it so much worse, though. Like, I like that they didn't. And because they didn't, I was like, oh, good. I'm refreshed by this. I'm refreshed by that.
My theory is that WB was just like, oh, it's Wonder Woman. Just do whatever you want. I don't care. Just make a Wonder Woman movie. Why not? Who cares? We'll throw some money at it. And then they were just kind of like hands off with it because they didn't care. I feel like that's what's going wrong with Superman, and what's wrong with Batman versus Superman. And that's what I'm worried about with Justice League, is that there's no love for it, basically.
Yeah.
There's like, oh, explosions, we got to put in some really great CGI, and we got to do this, that, and the other. And it's just like, well, how about we have a good story first? I feel like that's being lost over the not the quantity, I guess, but loss of focus on the quality of the script or the story in general, the bare bones of the story. And like Superman doesn't kill people. That's not Superman. Come on, he's a symbol of hope, and that's what irritates me about the new Justice League trailer. Is like they're trying to build on Superman being the symbol of hope, but in these last 3 movies, what is he? He's been a villain.
Yeah,
he's been killing people, destroying cities. It's like, oh, this is our symbol of hope. Yeah.
I didn't understand that. Yeah, I see it on the trailer. I'm like, what?
Way to go, WB.
You spent so much time crapping on Superman because apparently he needs to get crapped on that he's the symbol of hope. You're kidding me, right? Like, I understand because you had the points where he had Jesus allegory with like Mexico. He's saving people in Mexico and all these other places. Yeah. But we're talking about the U.S. The U.S. has villainized the crap out of Superman. And so how are they looking at him as a symbol of hope after the crap he's done in their thing?
I'm sorry, you just made me think of Channel Awesome and his review of Man of Steel, and he's just like, so many scenes, he's just like, I am Jesus. I am Jesus.
I remember that now. It's been a while since I saw that one. I watched that, and like Angry Joe chimes in and stuff on that. I remember that.
Oh yeah.
Oh geez. But yeah, I hope Justice League. I hope. But I feel like they should let them do whatever they want, because Flash is going to be called Flashpoint, which means they're just going to reset everything. Like, Flashpoint is what caused the New 52 in the comics. You can't just name the Flash movie Flashpoint and not reset the movies, is my opinion. So I think they're just going to reset the movies, and then we'll see what happens there. While Marvel's doing Infinity War, and I'm really curious how that's going to go, because people are going to die. It's Infinity War. It's Thanos. People don't die. I don't know what to say, because it's Thanos. It's the Infinity Gauntlet. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I have a feeling Iron Man may not make it through that movie.
I can guarantee Captain America's not going to make it. I can guarantee Captain America is not going to make it because he doesn't want to do Captain America anymore. So
Yeah.
I figure he's not going to make it. So it better be a really cool scene.
Iron Man's probably not going to make it because
He's
that's his
so
last one.
expensive. Yeah, he's so
Well,
expensive
that's
as
the last
well.
one in his contract.
Mhm.
I think is that one.
They said he was going to be in 4, like Iron Man 4, but I guess we'll see. It can always shake up. That's how it is. Um, but it should be the last Captain America until they get like another Captain America. But it should be his last one because he wants to just be a director now, is what I know. And like my favorite Captain America scene, just as a scene of just being Captain America, is in Civil War when he's holding the helicopter together with
Yeah,
helicopter and the helipad. Like, he's like, oh my, that was just such a cool looking feat of strength. I'm like, oh jeez, just like he's like just holding like, okay, that just looks really cool. That just
just
looks
it
cool.
was like the curls. Get the girls.
Pretty much. Oh geez, okay, we're going long, so let's end this out. I just noticed the time. We talked about a lot of things, comics and everything, and
A lot
is
of comics.
the beauty I feel of this podcast is we're talking about whatever we want to talk about. And I find it all interesting. I really do. And so this has been basically a podcast. And before we finish it out, a lesson you've learned over your time doing content creation.
Lesson I've learned doing content creation. Wow. I thought you were going to ask me like a life lesson. I was ready for life lessons. Not so much content creation. Uh, don't be a jerk. I mean, and like we were saying earlier, everybody starts somewhere. Don't be afraid to try something. If you try something and it doesn't work, fail faster. Try it. See what happens. It might be great, it might be junk. But until you actually do it, you never know. And sometimes when you're in the process of making something, you'll figure it out. Oftentimes. So, fail faster. Go for it. You can do it.
It's pretty good advice. So we've had basically a podcast with me and the Kyllax. And oh, remembering one more thing. Where can you be found? There you go. That's it.
You can find me online. I'm at the Kyllax on Twitter. I'm also youtube.com/the Kyllax. And if you want to email me, which, or if your grandma wants to email me, because that seems to be the only people who send emails nowadays, it's kylax@hotmail.com.
Damn.
Not the Kylax. I don't know. One of these days I'll get at Kylax at Twitter because that guy has never tweeted ever. That account does not exist, but for some reason I can't get it. I can't get at Kylax. So go ahead and start that Twitter hashtag. Give Kylax Kylax. Give the Kylax Kylax. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But that's where you can find me.
All right, so there you go. I had fun talking. Hope you had fun watching and listening. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, everyone, and see you next time.